young people here, persevere this. And don't get distracted by all the foolishness and all the ignorance that they have out here for you, because there's enough of it out here. It's important that you be standing there, because it's the Sheikh Abubakaris, it's the LeGrand Claves, it's the Ronoko Rashidis, it's the Omawali Fowles, it's the brother Ashraf Kwamesa Kwesi, this brother who is the godfather of my children. I'm the godfather of one of his children. We've been working together for 10 years out here in this particular struggle. We used to give lectures down at the Muhammad's Temple, number 27, when it was on Crenshaw Boulevard, at a time when it wasn't even popular to really teach on these things. Sheikh Abubakar had the First World Alliance. He saw it in New York City, and he saw that it was important to bring history to our people. Nobody came out there to support the program. The program fell apart. So over the years, we've witnessed this time and time again. We get a little bit of thing going, and the next thing you know, it's falling apart. We can't afford to have anything fall apart today. We got to keep this thing moving, keep it going. You got to support the African Study Group. Come out whenever they have anybody to speak. You don't have to be brother, whoever it is out here to speak. If they got something to talk about related to our people, we should come out and listen to it and criticize it. You know, at the end of this, you have a chance to ask questions to see if there's any validity to the allegations that I make here tonight. Don't believe a damn thing I tell you. Just come up and look at me and ask me the question, ask me to support what I say. To hold me responsible and accountable for what I say. You know, this is important that we do this. This is how we all grow. And so I won't go any further with this. We turn the projector on and get into the lecture. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about myself as we go along here, because I want to make sure we get through this whole thing. Thank you. This is one of the brothers we lost along the struggle here. In fact, the last time I saw Sister here, Sister Omawali Fowles, we were at the services for this brother who has worked with us. In fact, he met Brother Kwesi before I did. He was the first brother that Brother Kwesi met when he first came to Los Angeles. In fact, the brother helped the brother get his first job out at UCLA Medical Center. And we should all thank Brother Rashid, if for nothing else, for that, because the job that, yeah, give Brother Rashid a hand. Because I can hear the brother right now. Everybody knows how the brother is. You know, you can hear him right now. Yeah, brother, go home, brother. You know Brother Rashid. He's always been there, and he's always worked with the children, worked the children's space. You always find the brother in Linwood and Compton on Central Avenue and out in East LA. He was always in the trenches where nobody wanted to go. He grew up in the trenches just like I did. We grew up in the same neighborhoods in East LA, around Crenshaw Boulevard. I shined shoes at the age of 9 on Central Avenue. The Muslims used to come down and get the shoes shined, and this is how I began to grow as a young man, began to look into our history. But Brother Rashid, you see him standing in front of the great temple of Hathor on the island of Philae, in front of the temple of Aset, which we call the temple of Isis. And on the facade here, you see in the background the goddess Hathor. Now she is the goddess and queen of the West. The West in ancient Kemet, let me say this, the ancient Egyptians were the first people on earth to unify themselves as a nation. They were also the first people on earth to have a system of land use classification and urban planning. This is important. We just read past this stuff. They said that the mortuary temples will be situated on the west. The burial sites will be situated on the west. On the eastern side of the Nile, we will have our institutions and we will have our living quarters. So today when you go to buy a piece of property, you go and you buy a piece of property in a residential district, which they call the R district. R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, residential. One is multifamily, one is duplex, one is single family. This is land use classification. And when you get ready to build, if you want to build a cemetery or mortuary, you have to use an M zone. So they had an M zone long before the United States knew what an M zone was. This is the first system of land use classification. And so the queen of the West, the queen of the western side of heaven, was the goddess which we call Het Haru or Hathor. And so we know in our hearts that Brother Rashid, who has gone on to the ancestors now, has made his way to the west, to the western side of heaven. And today the brother is looking down upon us and he's giving us encouragement, and he's probably eating a nice dinner and having a good time. And we move on, we can see that this black woman, as Dr. Ben always points out, this goddess Hathor, was the very goddess that the Jews actually worshiped when they left the area called Chaldea or Mesopotamia. Remember, they said that they worshiped golden calves. Well, this was the goddess Hathor, Het Haru, and Moses worshipped her for over 40 years. This is important. You can see here again, merging out of the western cliffs, as you can see the tombs here. This is important because one of the things they said in America, and they try or attempt to differentiate Native American architecture, particularly the pyramids, the pyramidal superstructures from the Kemetic or Egyptian superstructures. They say that the Mesoamericans were temples and that the Egyptians were tombs. Well, we want to clarify this because every temple, every tomb in Egypt was also a temple. As you can see, the temple here in association with the tomb here. Again, you can see the goddess Hathor, the cow goddess of the west, coming out of the tomb here. And this particular pyramid is in the Yucatan Peninsula, and they still haven't completely reconstructed it or uncovered it. But in this particular pyramid, they found the priests lying there with their feet to the east and their heads to the west. Now, I was shocked when I began to study the religion of the Nahuatl, of the Aztec, and the Maya, because I found that the western side of the heaven in the Maya, the Azteca, and all the religions of Mesoamerica, the western side is called the place of women. The place of women. It is the exact same meaning that you have in ancient Kemet. And so here you find the priest laying with his feet to the east and his head to the west, laying inside the pyramid. Again, not just a temple, but also a tomb. And so many of us don't know. In my lecture, The Egyptian Temple, Mother of the Church, I show how the architecture of the church, as well as many of the religious concepts, come right out of ancient Kemet. They've stolen this right out of our motherland. And so you can see that the basic Canaan and Gothic architecture is the twin towers. The entrance to the temple always face the west. Wherever possible, they turn it towards the west. Because the judgment scene, the Nekka scene as we call it in Kemet, was always in the west, even in Christianity. This is something they took right out of Egypt. So here you have in Rome, in France, in Greece, where they have come into Africa and learned the concept of land use classification and learn order and structure, decide to pattern their religious philosophy after ours. And then you find the same concepts there in Mesoamerica. These are things that I want you to bear on your mind as we move along here. Again, you can see here the Gothic cathedrals here, this one being the Cathedral of Notre Dame. You can see here clearly where the scales are being used to determine who is righteous and who is not. And you have this hideous beast here to devour those who have not been found right and true. Now, obviously, this comes from the papyruses and the scripts in the temples of ancient Kemet. As you can see clearly, as the deceased come before the scales to have their hearts weighed against Ma'at, or the feather of truth, you have the beast here waiting in anticipation to devour those who are not found right and just. These are concepts that come right out of Kemet and were introduced into the church. Now, we're going to have to come back and do the temple lecture if y'all want to see more of that. But I just want you to see that these concepts are universal. And we have to begin to ask the question, how did they become that way? And you can see here that in the area of Chichen Itza, this particular building they call the church. And the four cardinal points of the church are represented by zoo types here. Four on each side, you have a monkey, a snail, a turtle, and you also have a man. Now remember, in the Bible you had Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. One was a man, one was an ox, one was an eagle, and one was a lion. And then this was taken right from Osiris's four sons. One was a man, one was a hawk, one was a baboon, and the other was a jackal? Yes. Yeah. So you got the four sons of Osiris that became the four gospel sons of Christ, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then you have, again, the same concept in association with Shak, as you see here, the rain god centered at the four cardinal points. Now we're going to make all this clear. I'm just kind of like introducing this information here. We're going to get into some real deep stuff as we move along here. So here you can see in ancient Kemet where you have the concept of the four sons here by the canoptic jars, in which they put the internal organs into the canoptic jars. And so you find also the concept of the canoptic jars right in the tombs of Mexico, representing the four cardinal points, just as they did it in ancient Kemet. In fact, burials, if you didn't expect to rise up from the dead, there would be no need to put pottery and eating utensils and so forth in your tomb. So the concept of resurrection and renewal is a very important and basic principle in both of these societies.